Live on Facebook.
All right. Yay!
Are you going to record? Are you going to record?
Oh, yes, I am going to record.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, everybody. It's yay, we're being recorded. So we just we had a few things to work through with the latest update of Zoom. So hi everybody, welcome to Walkabout Wednesdays. I'm Jody.
And I'm Anne.
Yay!
Happy to see you all again. Yay! And today we are gonna walk about outside Jody's house today, and but first we're gonna talk a little bit about phenology. Do you know?
Wait, what is that word, Anne?
Phenology.
How do you spell it?
Phenology.
Phenology.
And phenology is the study of the timing of biological events of plants and animals. So give me an example of a biological event of a plant or animal, Jody.
A biological event.
Like a life stage in a plant or an animal.
Okay. I'm stressed. Birth.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh my God.
Okay, so let's bring it back to plants in springtime, maybe.
All right. So emergence, right?
Emergence, yes. Or maybe when we see the leaves open up on the tree.
Okay.
That always looks super cool, and everybody always notices it because it looks like a green haze on the trees. That's
Yes.
one of those biological events. And so phenology is the study of these. And so why do we care about when these things happen?
Well, I mean, I know there's a lot of old timers who used to and still do keep track of that on their calendars. They note distinct, like the willow, pussy willows are out, or spruce tips are ready, or those sort of things. So, and I think that it's really, and actually I did it last year with regard to our some of our research plants, and we'll keep track of it this year, sort of, by hope, but it's to see changes over time, right?
And why do we care at what time things change?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's big. And I think that especially for South Central Alaska right now, we're warming up so differently. Our temperature regimes, our climate regimes are changing. I think that it's a way to document kind of the numbers on the thermometers. Mm-hmm. Does that work?
I think so. And I think so too, that it, noticing these changes on, a scientific level, whether it be citizen science like we're going to do today, or more on an academic research level, some of these changes that are noted from year to year, these are the things that, fish and game regulations are made by, because they're taking note of when the fish first passed the sonar, right. when caribou move, things like that. So and that's when you come with this mesh between Western science and Indigenous knowledge too, because we're taking into account all of, people that live out there, that have lived out there for generations, because they have this knowledge that, somebody coming in from the outside, yes, can make note of when this flower blooms, but isn't going to have that ingrained knowledge that has been passed on.
Right on. So it's a really cool way of kind of keeping track of what's happened in the past and what's happening right now to maybe possibly predict what happens in the future.
Right. And so what are some different ways that we can make these observations and keep track? You mentioned old timers keeping notes on calendars. My grandpa did that in Wisconsin for years and years and years. Calendar, or his little spiral notebook that he kept in his pocket all the time and would make note of things. But I mean, he could go back and, make note of, how, like, with the first robin that he saw, how that
Yes.
fluctuated from year to year. But then using that information, just noticing when one thing is different is cool in itself, but
Yep.
noticing that in comparison with something else that has shifted from year to year, I think that's where you're going to get that change, where you're going to start noticing these, more wide-ranging changes that are affecting a lot of things.
Got it.
And so for, notebooks, calendars, there's another thing that I've seen online where kids, especially younger kids, can do is make what's called a phenology wheel. And it's
Okay.
similar to that farmer's market wheel that we have for Alaska. You have one of those things?
Yeah, like this wheel.
Yeah. And so it's divided up into 12 pie pieces, one for each month, 4 for each season, or however you want to do it there. But then, kids can just make note of the things that they observed in changes out in nature in January, in February. So at this, there might be less that they're going to notice in the wintertime because they're not used to noticing these things yet.
Right.
But if you start now, they're going to start thinking about these things as they're out and walking around. And so right now I can see like little buds here and there, or we're going to go out to Jody's yard here soon and see some cool stuff. But it's a good way for kids they could draw pictures, color them, make it a little piece of artwork, make their own observations, and then they'll have this all in one place for the entire year. And then that's kind of cool to have to keep to look at from year to year.
Super cool. It could also be, kind of a fun dinner table conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of us are eating at home, obviously, for the main reasons, but spending that time together, having a focus to talk about, really, it just kind of brings everyone together, and you're not just like eating and being around the same people all day because that's what you've been doing, but it gives you an opportunity to kind of share something that you noticed during the day. And so maybe you have, you go around the table and everybody says something they noticed that happened today. Because this time of year, Anne, I mean, this is my favorite time of year because you can find something different like almost every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially cool too, because we are kind of all stuck in our houses and can't do a whole lot. But when I've gone out walking my dog, I see, little family units walking along the trail as well. And this would be a good time to start pointing out these things and, playing I Spy, all sorts of fun stuff you could do while you're out walking, and then talk about this later when you get home.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And then also keep in mind that, what Anne's talking about these changes, and it's not just plants. I mean, we can also, and Anne mentioned that her grandfather would note the first robin that would show up. And I remember my dad on his calendar did the exact same thing. It was a big deal. And I grew up in the northern Midwest, and it was really a big deal when that first robin showed up. And so, and I remember my dad talking about like, wow, it's weeks early this year, or weeks late. And then just the conversation that went on just from that observation, which was, why was the robin late this year, or why was the robin early this year? And then it's just super cool to document it. Not just, I mean, talking about it is fantastic, but then like some documentation so that next year when you pull it out, you're like, holy mackerel, what we noticed last year isn't happening this year, or it is.
And I noticed when I was little too, when the discussion of robins came up, that discussion happened like at church. It happened at the hardware store. It happened, at the grocery store.
Yep.
We're out at the park. I mean, because it was a big deal when the robins came. And so sometimes I even recall special phone calls that came like, oh, we saw the first robin kind of thing. I know. But
like in terms of birds around here, robins do show up and it's exciting, but I think people get most excited about the cranes. What do you think? Yeah.
I agree. And they are pretty darn cool.
They're so cool. By the way, speaking of birds, and Jim, Jim out at the farm, we love Jim. Jim said he had 2 swans in the melt lake in the field across from the office.
That's awesome.
So that's another thing, is that migration, right? And that's kind of that's one of those big deals, and us observing it is one thing, but if your community, relies on that migration, whether it be salmon or caribou or a particular bird for eggs, and you're waiting for that migration to happen for food, you're really keen on that, the timing of it.
Right. Well, and also too, the fluctuation of timing comes into play. You notice it more when you're seeing the snowshoe hares that turn white before it snows.
Yes.
And so that trigger has already happened in
Yep.
their bodies, because, and then it's interesting to, try to figure out why, what's going on. Obviously something's a little wonky, and it's just, it's good to, talk about this stuff and try to figure it out. And it just leads to some pretty good discussions, I think.
Absolutely. So you're our tech wizard. Do you have a good suggestion of a fun app on a phone that maybe a family or individuals could do at home to play with this idea?
Actually, I do.
What? You do? You're prepared.
So within the United States, we have an organization called the U.S. National Phenology Network. And so it's nationwide, and it brings together groups of scientists and researchers, government agencies, and citizen scientists. And basically, I mean, they have a great website for one, a lot of cool activities on there. And their citizen science portion of it is called Nature's Notebook. And so you can go on there, and they have lots of activities, because you do not need an app for a phone to do this citizen science.
Awesome.
But I know, but a lot of people do, so it makes it easier when you're out walking around. But you can also take notes in a notebook and enter things later. But you sign up with Nature's Notebook, and then you make observations. And there's an app, it's called Nature's Notebook. You can find in your app store. Super easy, not super clunky, and it's free. And you create an account, and then it's going to ask you to choose a site, because they want you making your observations in a particular area. So this is different than, say, iNaturalist that we talked about before, because that's just making your cool observations wherever you go. Right. This one is more place-based. So you could choose your yard. They have, if you look on their website, they have kind of limits to be as guidelines, like, a couple of hectares kind of thing. For your area, for your site. And then you're going to start making your observations. And it's super easy. It's got a list by common name. It's plants and animals. Common name, it does it by the scientific name. And then it's just some yes and no questions. And Jody can use it outside today, because it also includes, say, garden rhubarb.
Oh, sweet.
And so when we as citizen scientists enter this data into here, it goes into this giant database that then researchers and scientists can pull this information out of. And that's what they can look at: trends in green up and green down, which is similar to the globe observer that we talked about the other week, which is another citizen science observation tool, but that one's worldwide. This one is strictly US based. And so it has some great maps that you can generate off of it based on all of the cool, just on your particular plant that you're interested in, or your particular animal. It's a pretty cool thing, and it's super easy. Kids can do it, adults can do it. You can do it as a family. You could do it as a group activity. It's a good one to look at.
Nice. That sounds super cool. So I was thinking about, here, we're going to talk about rhubarb in just a little bit, but we have a lot of different types of plants going on at the farm, and for research purposes, for collection purposes and demonstrations. It might be kind of fun to incorporate this notebook concept into what we're doing as well, just to have people, can you view it like it, let's say, I did one for the farm, or we did one for the farm. Could you go in, Anne, and find it?
I believe so. You can search based on location, I believe. I'd have to look at it a little bit more.
No, that's cool. But I mean, just so there's that opportunity, so you could look at maybe all of the people, the different observations happening in Palmer, for example. You could do it that way.
Right. So I have a question from Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa, what's up?
It says, what is the kids' activity called where they notice changes month to month?
Good question. What did you call that wheel, Anne?
The phenology wheel?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of looks like, let's see, it's hard to show.
It's like a pie.
It is. It's like a pie, and the middle turns, and the outside stays static. So this is actually two pieces here, like this.
Right, but it doesn't even need to be that fancy. The one you do, just be, you know, like paper plate size.
Yeah.
And some pie plate. So just, you know, cut it like a 12-piece pie. So you have it based on your months. If that's how you want to delineate it, you could do it just based on season too. But months is kind of nice to divide it down.
So this one is by season. Yeah, but you could do it by months, or, I mean, you could even do one plate for a month, like, for example, and have 4 weeks out here.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, because in March, or it's over, I don't know what month we're in April and in May, here in Alaska, you're going to be seeing things rapidly, like changes within the week. And so maybe even doing one of these for an entire month and doing observations each week. Week 1, this is what I saw. Week 2, this is what I saw. And it could be just, you know, really simple diagrams, like, you know, on week 1, I saw this little lump, you know, in the soil, but on week 2, it started growing, you know, into more blades, and I saw blades of grass. And then by week 3, it had like a little flower on it, you know, like that sort of way.
Yeah, and I did see some other cool ideas where, you know, people who are super creative in journaling, and they did some beautiful drawings and illustrations of the cool things that they were seeing, and, you know, made it look much cooler than I could probably make it look. But, you know, there's
you said that because you're jealous of my drawings, aren't you?
I am.
So yeah, it's just an opportunity to kind of visually see the changes in one spot, so that you're not looking through pages and turning pages, but actually it's all on one page. And it usually those are in circles, because, you know, it's all a cycle. It's all a circle anyway. And so, yeah, that would be a really fun way to play with the kids. Great question.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions out there, Melissa?
Melissa's our helper today. She's checking out questions for us. So if you do have questions, do type them into Facebook Live, into our feed. And we do have a moderator. Melissa is our silent moderator today. And she's getting us the questions so that we're able to get them answered for you. So last year we started, I don't know if you, winter last year, this time last year. Do you remember what it was like, Anne?
Yes, because it was my first winter in Palmer, because I used to live out in Gakona. So it was my first winter in Palmer, and I didn't get out my winter coat once.
There you go.
Because it wasn't terribly cold, and I don't recall getting a ton of snow. It seemed like we got some, you know, 4 inches at a time, and then that would melt, and then we get another little batch, but not like this year.
Right. And do you remember last year at this time what we were going through?
What we were going through?
Well, like what the weather was like.
Oh, it was warm.
It was super warm.
Super warm.
Yeah, it was really, really, it was deceptively warm. Because lots of people were so anxious to get their gardens going already, like this early. It was very warm, and so we started checking our rhubarb emergence out at the farm, and on the 10th, see, this is where like nerds take over, right? We were taking notes of significant plant, life markers. Emergence is one. And last year, we were checking emergence on our rhubarb. And on the 10th of April, 2019, we had 5 varieties of rhubarb that had already started emergence.
And we have a pretty good collection of rhubarb at the farm. How many do we have out there, Jody?
We do. We have 65 plants in our collection. And of those plants, we have 36 different named. 36, right? Most people are like, wait, what? Rhubarb? There's more than one kind, right? It's just rhubarb. Rhubarb's rhubarb. We have 36 different named rhubarbs. And here's the mind blower. We have 4 species. 4 different species of rhubarb. So rhubarb isn't rhubarb, which is really fun. So we have all of this variety. And we moved it all last year into a really nice curated collection. And we've set it up so that all of the similar ones are together. And so what I mean by that is when we had this collection, we had a geneticist working out here several years ago, and his name was Dr. Joe Cool. That's a true statement. And Dr. Cool ran the genetics of all of our rhubarb, our individual rhubarb. And what he came up with was that most of our rhubarb is not different from each other. We have some rhubarb. So I told you we have 65 plants, right? And we have some multiple plants of the named ones, but we have 36 different named ones. We really only have 15 unique genetic rhubarb in our plot. So that's kind of, well, actually 18, sorry, because I forgot the other 3 varieties of the one species. We've got that. And then we've got those 3 unique species. So in our 4 species, we have 18 genetically unique. And so what that means is that we have, for example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different named rhubarb, totally random names, and they're exactly genetically identical. So they're the same rhubarb with different names. And we couldn't, I know it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, but it's kind of fun. So the way that we curated our collection, the way we organized our collection is I made sure that when we moved all of our plants, that we kept all of the identical ones together. Mm-hmm. So smart. Even though there's 8, 9 different names, they're actually 9 exact same plants. That's a great question. Which rhubarb tastes better? Do you know the varieties of your rhubarb?
Nope. So according to my grandma, she had a giant patch in Wisconsin, and she had both green and red. Uh-huh. And what she always told me is that the red's prettier, but the green has better flavor. That's as far as variety we could get. But I have a neighbor who says flavor does not change between the 2.
There you go. And your neighbor does rhubarb research also. Mm-hmm. So that's probably a significant statement. I think that question it's an excellent question because all of us have different numbers of receptors on our tongues. And so we'll all taste it and it'll be sour. Let's just admit rhubarb's wicked sour. But to some people, there may be, a little essence of something different that they may perceive. And so, honestly, we do have this collection at the farm. The rhubarb we're going to go look at, the rhubarb that we're going to look at in the yard actually is, I don't know what variety it is. How many of you guys out there know what variety your rhubarb is? Really?
You know, in some of the gardening catalogs, they seem to have a variety called Victoria.
Yes.
Pretty frequently.
I'm trying to see if we have Victoria. We do not have Victoria. We have a Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
And
so Melissa's writing back here. It says, so the differences are maybe only a result of where they were grown. Amount of sun and water. Yep. And maybe the stuff that's in the soil.
It could very well be that way. We're going to walk outside because I think it's time to start going there. But one of the things too to note about the rhubarb themselves is that of these 65 different plants that we have, we also tested the sugar content, or the Brix test. We did a Brix test on all of those. Mm-hmm. And so the sugar content, even though their varieties are not genetically the same, their Brix values were pretty much all the same.
Interesting.
So they're all very bitter. How difference in sunlight, with a difference in water, with a difference in soil. I just fell through the snow. With a difference with soil nutrient content, and with the varietal differences, absolutely, that could get you a different flavor. Absolutely. So, what you should do is you should start borrowing rhubarb from your family and friends to taste the difference between them. That would be kind of fun. I think
that'd be a rhubarb tasting party once we can all get together again.
You could totally do that. Mm-hmm. So I want to show you guys a little bit. So I made it outside without falling too far, which was great. And look at this beast. Look at this thing, Anne.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is pretty crazy.
And I know I have lots of friends who are probably just gasped at me and were so appalled. Jody, why would they be appalled at this, Anne? What would you say as a good gardener? What did I do wrong?
Oh, so that's how I would have left mine, but I would have cleaned it up a lot sooner than now. Because we have voles and other little critters that like to live underneath there, and maybe they are creating a little bit of compostable action as well, but those leaves get super rotty and slimy and kind of gross anyway.
Yeah, totally that. So, this isn't probably ideal. I'm sharing my life with all of you, so just, let's just be gentle. And so, but the really fun part about this is that this is a ridiculous place for a rhubarb. I'm going to back up and talk to you guys a little bit as I do, hopefully not falling. So if you can see, this is the front of my house, and you see the roof line and the dormer there, right? And then I don't know if you can tell, but the rhubarb sits under it, so it doesn't even get natural falling rain. This was a present that a friend of mine gave my daughter. He gave her a rhubarb, and she was 7. So imagine your 7-year-old getting a rhubarb plant in the summertime and not knowing what to do with it. So I bothered her until she planted it, which she planted it right there. It's in the backfill.
How long ago was this, Jody?
Oh, she planted that in, let's see, if she was, did I say she was 7 or 8?
7, you said.
So that would have been, let's see, 2005.
So 15 years old. That.
Yeah. So it's about a 15-year-old rhubarb. Yeah. Well, I mean, at this location. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here my daughter dug a hole and just angrily threw a rhubarb into the hole. Literally, that's exactly what happened. Now, I don't know if she meant to do it, and I'm pretty sure she didn't, but she magically figured it out. I'm just going to flip this, or I'm just going to turn around with you guys for just a sec. But you see how bright it is out? Holy geez.
Yeah.
And you see where the sun is? This is a southern facing location, right? So this spot, I mean, you can see already there's no snow here around the house, but it's also on the south side. This warms up faster than anything. Now, the ground I'm standing on is really frozen, but right up against the house with the radiant heat coming from the house, but also being on the south facing slope and the south side of the house, it gets really nice warm sunshine faster than most other places. So this is kind of a happy place for the rhubarb.
So are you going to poke around in there a little bit and we can see if there's anything popping up?
Heck yeah, let's do it. So do you see these big, huge ones?
Yeah.
These stalks? This is where the flowers are. So really quick, while we're just hanging out here, and I'm going to play around with this, I'm going to have Anne explain why rhubarb is a vegetable. Why is rhubarb a vegetable, Anne?
Why is rhubarb a vegetable? So we always typically use it in kind of sweet instances in recipes. There are some savory ones out there, and it would be lovely if whoever's listening out and watching on Facebook Live could throw their favorite rhubarb recipe name into the chat box, because there's lots of fun stuff you can do with it. But people typically use it in sweet dishes, I think because you're adding a lot of sugar to it and it is so delicious. But actually the part that we're eating is not the fruiting body of the plant. The fruiting body of the plant is what holds the seeds, which leads to reproduction. And so typically the large flower stalks, which Jody had just showed us, that are hollow on the inside, those round hollow stalks, come up usually late spring. Yep, there we go, right there. And then if you let them keep growing, they'll have a flower head at the top of them. And so typically what I do, and I think probably a lot of people do, is snap those off, because you don't want the plant's energy to be going into that, producing that flower stalk, because you want it to produce some more of the delicious leaf stems, because that's the part that we eat. So yeah, it is a vegetable technically, but you know, it's kind of fuzzy because, you know, tomatoes are fruits. We usually use that categorization based on at what point we eat it in a meal.
Got it. And also, so you can consider this to be a vegetable in the botany world and a fruit in the culinary world.
That's correct.
Which is kind of weird. So I do actually cut my inflorescence, my flowers. I know it doesn't look like it, but I do cut them. You can kind of see this angle right here. I cut them during the season, but I'll tell you straight up, Anne, that window right there is 100% covered when this guy is full.
Ah, that's awesome.
And so when I cut it back, it's kind of loud. Sorry. I'll just do this. Woo! It's so gross.
So a couple of my favorite rhubarb recipes to use lately is, in addition to the delicious crisps and jams and things like that, is I've found a good recipe to pickle it. And so you take chunks of it, and I use just your standard, I guess it's not a standard pickling brine, but you know, I try to use the stuff that I can pick or grow and make myself. And it's fun because it's like you have the tart, and then it's sweet because the pickling brine, I use the sweetener in there, and then I add a little spice to it. So, you know, a fun other way to use your rhubarb.
Delish. I want to show you something, Anne. This is exciting. Aside from all the mold that I just inhaled, I want you to look at this little dude right here. Look right there.
I can see it.
What? look at
That's super exciting. Look at that. Mark it down on the calendar.
Emergence. And did you see how much crap I had to pull off before I could find even that guy?
I did.
So, wait, how did this guy do that when it was all covered, Ann?
Oh, do you think there was just maybe a trigger inside the plant?
Possibly.
It knew based on the temperature on where it's located, getting kind of warm, the sun's hitting it. There's those internal switches inside plants, the same things that switch animals' fur to white as opposed or to brown, depending on the season, that adaptation.
There you go. I like what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all this.
But I bet you once you clear that off and some more sunlight and warmth can get to those little nubbins coming up, they'll come up a lot faster.
No doubt. No doubt. It's a hardy little beast, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it's just starting to come up too. Just last weekend, my mother in Wisconsin, she always sends me a picture when her rhubarb starts popping up.
Aw.
Yep. And hers were, you know, probably a good inch popped out of the ground. And that's in central Wisconsin. So we're not too far behind. And they've had some warm weather too. So
yeah. Well, cool. Oh my goodness, this was fun. Oh, whoa. Look. Look at this guy.
Look at that one. Yep.
And then, oh, look, here's one. That's
See, you're uncovering
just barely.
Yep.
Just barely. So interesting right here, and the section that I just pulled off and found those two big guys.
Yeah.
It's much more moist here.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. Look at this little dude. Look at him hiding. Look. Hello. And then there's this dude. Look at them all. They're everywhere.
That's good. So it'd be nice if everybody who's listening in who has rhubarb at their house to go out and take a peek.
Yeah, check it out. See what you find. And look, you cannot mistake that. Look at the color. Look how gorgeous that color is all amongst that dark sadness.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's just like, zing.
Yep, that's springtime right there.
Right there. There it is. It's happening.
Yep.
Awesome. So, of course, if you guys have any questions, make sure to put it in the box or to just leave it on this page and we'll check it. We're really excited. This is super cool.
It is super cool. And I hope people get out and use that Nature's Notebook app or make your own phenology wheels and do some cool stuff with it, because now is a great time to be out and noticing all the changes that is happening, the birds that are chirping, the things that you can see and hear.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of great stuff out there these days.
So much is happening. It's so exciting. And next week, Anne, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the soil right now. Oh, fun. Right? Is that cool? Because what do I love? I love dirt. And I'm so excited to tell you guys what's happening right now, because most everybody is just really the real piece is everyone's just looking at this right now, aren't they? Yeah. They're just like, come on. And then the reality is like, okay, the snow is melting in spots. Okay, we've got some life that's coming back. Yep. But the reality is that the soil never stopped. Isn't that cool? Even all throughout all this, for next week. Next week is the soil never sleeps. I think that's what we'll title it, Anne. Sounds like a good one. Maybe we can make t-shirts. Oh, t-shirts. I love t-shirts. Actually, I love sweatshirts, but anyway. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been really super cool, and I hope that you guys have had fun.
take some pictures of your rhubarb. I mean, holy geez, it's awesome. And we're going to come back to rhubarb later this summer when we're back out at the farm and we're able to show you guys some. It's going to be it's a really cool collection. It's beautifully done. The farm crew was able to transplant it just lovely, and every one of them survived the transplant last summer. So we're really looking forward to emergence out at the farm, and we can't wait to see you guys next week. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, Jody, for showing us around your yard.
Woo! Join us next week at 2:15 for Walkabout Wednesdays with Anne and Jody, and we're going to talk about the soil never sleeps. Whoa. Bye, guys. Take care of each other and be safe.
Bye-bye.